At the heart of horror, there has always been more than spooks and scares.
Sometimes, it's not what you see, but what you hear.
Welcome to Sound Scary.
Each week, we talk to the artists,
The musicians,
the fans, the people who haunt the shadowy corners of your mind.
join us as we delve into the deepest
Darkest.
and most unforgettable earscapes.
Welcome
To Sound Scary.
Welcome to a Sound Scary mini-sode. I am your host, Ryan Coltrera.
And I am James Oster, Jimmy O, of course. And we're really excited because this is something new for us. We've been doing these episodes we're in our second season now, but we have something really special. We wanted to kind of start helping, these amazing people that we have on our shows. We want to promote their stuff. Graham Skipper is an incredible director. Clint Sears is just the awesomest guy. He's an incredible writer. And they are here to talk about something really special that we're really excited about. Graham, I want to start with you. Where did this come from? And obviously we're in a weird time in the middle of a pandemic. What was the inspiration for starting Down in the Basement with Graham Skipper?
Down in the Basement, yeah. First of all, thanks for having us on. It's good to see you guys, and I'm excited to talk about this. Yeah, Clint approached me with this idea and sort of introduced me to the world of Spoon, which is really interesting and really cool. And basically, it was like, well, what do you think about the idea of a horror podcast, but with a live interaction element, which to me seems super exciting, right? Like even just this morning, I was going on a walk and I had a horror podcast in and I wanted to speak to them, like I heard it was, I forget what it was. It was like one of them like misquoted something from The Exorcist or something like that, something nerdy that I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, there's no way for me to actually chime in about this. I guess I could like get on Twitter and like try to tweet at them, but it's not really the same as having a dialogue. And then in addition to that, talking about all of the weirdness that's happening right now, it's like, what are the things that we've latched onto, right? Like we've latched on to Joe Bob because that's a communal viewing experience. We've latched onto things like The Mandalorian because it happens every week and people get together and watch it. And I think that's the thing that people really want right now. I think it's the thing people really need right now. And I like hanging out with horror people. I think horror people all like to hang out with each other. And so Down in the Basement just kind of grew out of that. It's like, well, okay, let's build a show where it really is a horror hangout where we can all get together every week and talk about horror stuff. And I like hanging around in creepy basements. And so I figured other people would.
Well, who doesn't, though? I mean, seriously.
I mean, that's like, when you think about horror movie locations, like basement is a top 5, of course.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So it totally makes sense. And I was reading up on the show. I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun. And one of the things that is mentioned is that you guys are going to be doing some trivia. So I was wondering if there is a horror movie that you feel you are expert enough on to go toe-to-toe with anybody.
Well, I will say this is generally I'm pretty terrible at trivia. What I like to do when I ask trivia questions is I really like to find questions that I actually would know the answer to, because I feel like it's kind of cheating to have to like look up some obscure like Wikipedia entry and then ask other people to know it. But yeah, if I'm thinking about a movie that I know most everything about, I mean, I would have to say probably Reanimator.
Nice.
Probably The Exorcist. That's the movie that got me into like loving horror. So I've seen that movie dozens of times. Maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those are the ones that I've seen the most. So I probably would have the best shot at holding my own with one of those.
Okay,
Nice.
Now we got you on record.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Now, I want to jump in, and I want you both to answer this question. How did you guys connect with Spoon? And Clint, tell us a little bit about Spoon and what that is and how that's kind of helping boost this and make it happen.
Absolutely. So Spoon is an interactive audio platform. They kind of, they found me, I found them, and all of a sudden I found myself with an opportunity to be in charge of show running original shows for them. And just like Graham said, I was like, oh my gosh, just the unlimited possibilities just kept flooding my mind of like, how can we make this kind of new fun format where it's completely interactive? You can bring people in, bring people out. We can run polls. We can do all kinds of cool stuff. And then bringing like traditional content, traditional shows, mixing that in with the format. And I just had a million ideas. And then, of course, for, one of the easiest ones was the horror community, because everybody, the horror community is loyal. They love just like supporting each other. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Graham to like go to and just, I was thinking I was going to have to do a hard sell on him. And he would just immediately was like, boom, I've got this. And it was just a perfect match. And he's so fun. And, he's look at him. He's a lovable guy. Everybody loves Graham.
It's funny when you called me about that. A little known fact about me is I've always dreamed of being a radio DJ. It's like been my dream thing. When I was a little kid, I remember there was a Disney channel, like a Disney radio channel, and it was called Radio Oz. And I thought it was the coolest thing because they had like kid radio DJs. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Forget being an astronaut. I'm going to be a kid radio DJ. And obviously that didn't turn out, but somehow.
Well, we still need more shows, Graham. So see how it goes.
Yeah, no, did you ever get a chance to like DJ in college or anything like that?
Never.
Oh, man. Now's your chance, man.
Now's my chance. I mean, I'm going to have I want to have all the funny sound effects and all the stuff. I want to have the whole bit. I want to do the whole thing.
Very nice. And it sounds like you guys got some amazing guests coming up too. Could you tell us about some of the people you got coming on the show?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the first people that I reached out to, not only because he's an amazing person and one of my very close friends, but also because he has a really long horror career that people don't talk about enough, is George Wendt. I did Reanimated the Musical with George for like 5 years, and I had met him doing comedy stuff in New York before that, and we're good friends, and I love his horror stuff and like the stories he's told me personally about like working on Tales from the Crypt, on House or King of the Ants, is all just really interesting stuff. And of course, whenever he goes on stuff, people obviously ask him about Cheers and comedy stuff, but I just think it's going to be really interesting to talk to him about horror. And that's the thing too that I'm excited about with all of our guests is, obviously everybody has serious horror pedigree, but I'm really interested to talk about like those things that not everybody covers, like I don't know, Clint, who else? I'm blanking here on some of
Darren Bowsman, he's going to be talking about, we'll try and get him on closer when we figure out when Spiral's going to drop, so that'll be really exciting. We've got Bill Moseley's going to come on, your friend and collaborator at times, I think, Grant, Bria
Grant
coming on.
Yeah, and again, like one of the things, like with all these people, what's going to be so fun, I think, is really talking about how they all grew to love horror. Like that's a thing that I'm always really fascinated by, and especially once you have people like Darren Bowsman, who now obviously they're one of the major creators of the Saw franchise, and like they have this huge career, and it's like, well, let's go back. Like, how did this start? What do you love about horror? Because that's the thing that we all really can connect on, right? Like, no matter how big you get, everybody started somewhere, and I'm excited to talk about that. I think for me, the beauty of the horror community is that we all share this love for this, for lack of a better word, fringe thing. And I think that's the thing that really unites everybody. That you can nerd out with Bill Moseley, just the same as you can nerd out with, your buddy at the bar. And, and so, I just want to get rid of like, the I don't know, officialness that a lot of interviews have, and really just have a conversation, and then allow the people listening to jump in on the conversation. You know, that's what's so cool about this platform with Spoon, is that people are going to be able to chat in, they're going to be able to communicate, they're going to be able to like ask a question, you know, and something like that, which I feel, you know, so often, you know, if I'm listening to somebody have an interview, you know, I want to know things, and you're not always able to actually ask them yourself. So this gives you the opportunity. I'm really excited about that.
There was a thing back about 8 months ago, I don't remember, called movie theaters. And they'd have like this
heard
thing
of
where
Those.
So you
Lauren
guys
Leonard.
talk about it afterwards. Yeah.
they go to these theaters and they have Q&As. It's weird. I know it's a long time ago, but that almost sounds like those, you know, those kind of cool Q&As that you'd get like when you see Saw and James Wan is there and or you know, shit like that. That's really cool.
Well, and what I think is also cool about it is that, you know how in a Q&A there's always that sense of nervousness, like, do I want to ask a question? Is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be embarrassing?
Sure.
And I think what's cool about Spoon is that, you know, there is still that layer of, for lack of a better word, anonymity, where you're able to, you know, it's you're typing into a chat, you know, or sometimes you're calling in, but like, you know, you're able to I think be a little bit braver with some of the stuff that you want to ask, which is the questions that I want to hear. You know, I want to dig in.
Which is,
There's no barrier
that's good.
for participation. You can just jump right in. So
Yeah.
As one who has asked some just bunk questions at Q&As, I appreciate that level of safety you're giving people.
Anything is game. Ask anything.
I was just going to loop back a little bit because you were talking about how you are going to talk to guests about kind of their horror inspirations and what inspired them to get into this genre. I kind of want to know about yours. What movies growing up kind of inspired you to find your way into the genre of horror?
I grew up with I had a pop-up book when I was a little kid, and it was of the Universal Monsters, and it was this really, I still have it. It's somewhere. It's on a bookshelf here in my house, and I remember like really liking it, but being like a little bit too scared by it. You know, it was like one of those things that I was kind of scared by, but I was like fascinated. So as I got older, my dad bought me this huge picture book, and it had all of these pictures in it of like Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, you know, Leprechaun, Reagan from The Exorcist, you know, all this stuff, and Leatherface. And I remember I would flip through the book and I would read a little bit about the movies. And again, I was like, I really think I'd like these, but I'm really scared. I was a huge scaredy cat. So I finally went to my dad, and my thinking was, if I watch the scariest movie first, then that'll get everything out of the way, and everything will be a piece of cake after that. So I went to my dad, and I was like 10 or 11, and I said, "What's the scariest movie ever made?" And I goes, "Well, I think it's The Exorcist." And I said, "Okay, we're renting it this weekend. I want you to show it to me." And so when I was like 10 or 11, my parents showed me The Exorcist. It wrecked me, absolutely wrecked me. I didn't sleep for a week, but I remember that the first thing that I wanted to do, I didn't sleep at all that night, but I was thinking about the movie the whole time, because in my brain I was going, all right, I know somebody like directed this. I know this isn't real. You know, I know that like somebody made this thing, but I'm still really scared by it. So the first thing I wanted to do the next morning was pop it on again. And I watched it like 3 times that day to try to like understand, how did this movie, you know, because no other movie I'd ever seen had made me feel that way. I'd liked movies, but I'd never felt like that. And that's what got me into, you know, I learned about jump scares that day watching that movie. You know, I learned, you know, I would sit there and watch that candle explosion, you know, in the attic. And I was like, that scares the hell out of me every single time. How does he do it? I was like, oh, well, because she is really slow and quiet before. Wow, that's amazing. And that was, I think, my sort of introduction to the language of horror films and like the artistry behind it, and really appreciating that. And after that, I was hooked. I went to my local video store and I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, I want a primer on everything, horror primer. And like he gave me Halloween. He gave me the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He gave me Nightmare on Elm Street, and then he gave me Friday the 13th 3. He told me to skip the first 2.
How dare you!
I know. He was not perfect. And then he gave me Hellraiser. He said, watch these. He said, start with Halloween, end with Hellraiser. That's the weirdest one. And just watch these this weekend. So I had all my buddies over and we watched all those movies. And that was my primer, you know, and I was just I was hooked from there on out.
What about you, Clint? What was your introduction?
Mine is similar. It takes a different path, but basically I had an overprotective mother that like wouldn't let me watch anything. So I thought all horror was basically either the scary stuff my brothers would tell me about, you know, all the typical stuff that we just listed off, or the only thing that I could watch, which was like, do you guys remember they had like in the 80s, like Friday night movies that were always hosted by like some funny comedian dressed up like either a knockoff Elvira or Dracula.
Sure.
Mhm.
I used to love those, but the movies are so boring because they could only get clearance to like, you know, the worst stuff. I thought I didn't like horror movies, but I loved it when it would cut in between to like the comedy of the host, right? And so I didn't think I was that interested. And then all the stuff that my brothers would tell me about, they were about 7 years older, and you know, I'm a little kid, just scared the shit out of me. So I was like, oh, I don't think I like horror, until one day my brother snuck in an old VHS of the Evil Dead, and then I
Nice.
could not stop watching it. And that was the first time I realized, like, oh, horror doesn't have to be just completely terrifying. It can also be, you know, a little bit art house. It can be a little funny and stuff like that. And so that's probably been the genre I've been like most drawn to. And no matter what I'm working on or whatever I do, I always love sneaking in jokes and trying to like do a little bit of a tone blend with whatever I'm doing. So yeah, I think that was the one that set me on my path. And then, of course, I caught up to everything else later.
Of course. Well, guys, first of all, when does this air? How can people listen, and how can people join in?
Sure, absolutely. We're going to get a definite link that we're going to send out to everyone, that you'll just be able to click that link. But it's going to be Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Central, which will be 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. And you can just go on the app and just, you know, Down in the Basement. That's what you're going to search for. Download Spoon, Down in the Basement. And it'll also give you notifications once that's there. And we'll have that up real soon. So
I
Awesome.
can't wait.
We'll
I
definitely be
can't wait.
tuning in. I'm looking forward to it.
great.
Yeah. You guys, thank you for joining us for our very first Sound Scary, whatever we're going to call it.
Insert title
Thank you
here.
guys.
We'll
We
figure it.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much, guys. This has been a blast.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.